Hello, everybody. We're 13 seconds in. I know I was supposed to do this earlier today, but it's what can I say? It's been a crazy day. Now, I'm about to leave the office in a few minutes, but before I leave, I'd like to share something with you that I think is important for us to discuss, at least briefly. And I realize that this is a very controversial issue on the international stage, but I felt it incumbent upon me to sort of share with you my thoughts on this issue and also to teach some of you the genesis of this conflict. Honorable Kalumba Chishimba, Shani Bakalamba, hello to you. The Monitor, how are you, Uncle Mwewa? Thank you so much. John F. Zambia, no, he's not. John F. Zambia says Tayali's out. No, he's not. He's still incarcerated. I can't tell you where he is. I know where he is. It's not a secret. It's just that the person that led me to where he was made me give my word that I wouldn't disclose that information. It's not a secret. I don't want you to think that it's some clandestine operation. It isn't. But I don't want to be the source of that information. It's very easy to find out. All you have to do is go to Central Police. They'll tell you where he is. And if it's really that important to you, you'll see him. He's not under some type of extraordinary condition. He's someone that's been arrested for something that's a problem. And the authorities that be are going to sort that out. But please don't be under any illusion that he's out. He's not out yet. He will be eventually, I'm sure, for the sake of going to court and going to trial and things like that. And there are people that are tasked to do that. I'm not his spokesperson. I do not speak on his behalf, but I do have information that, you know, if you'd like to know, is there in broad daylight. The fact of the matter is he hasn't been released yet, and that's still yet to be determined by the authorities. I'm not a lawyer. I'm not a prosecutor. You'd have to ask them that question. But if you'd like to really know whether or not he's still in custody, the answer is yes, he still is, and that's not a secret, okay? And let me just also quickly mention something about that before I get into this topic of the Israeli-Palestinian conflict. You know, Tayali doesn't have a sense of self. In the position that he's in now, if you read his last post, it is the most insulting post that you could ever come across. And you would think that by now he would learn the ropes. You would think that by now he knows what to say and what not to say. But oh no, he's in a world of his own. He has delusions of grandeur. And unfortunately, he is going to dance to the tune of the law. None of us are above the law. So we'll wait and see how that turns out. But, you know, as far as I'm concerned, I think he makes one blunder after the next. You know, he literally he walks all over himself. And it's really sad to see. It's like watching a train wreck in slow motion. The guy simply doesn't learn. He needs to learn that old-fashioned art of keeping your gob shut. There is divinity in keeping your mouth shut sometimes. You don't always have to open your gaping mouth. You don't always have to say the most ridiculous, the most outlandish, the most offensive things on this side of the hemisphere. Sometimes all you have to do is keep quiet. There is divinity in silence. All right, that's all I'm going to say about that. Bless you, Darius. The Israeli-Palestinian conflict is an ancient battle. We cannot talk about it without looking into the Bible. I agree with that. But let me just give you a brief background. And guys, I must tell you, and I'm going to let you in on a little secret. When I was in secondary school, one of my favorite subjects was history. I did well in history because I loved it so much. And the main reason I loved history is because I had a fantastic history teacher. And incidentally, I must tell you that the lady that taught me history, you're not going to believe this. She taught my wife history. She taught my siblings history. The same lady, Mrs. Nkowane. Many of you know who she is. Many students all across this country know who that lady is. She planted in me the love of history. And I'll never forget her teaching us the history of the conflict of Israel and Palestine. And it was the most intriguing thing because to me as a young teenager, it felt like watching a motion picture because it was so dramatic. And it's mind-boggling to realize that the same things, the same conflict, the same disagreement, the same horror, the same hell that existed back when I was a teenager, learning about the Israeli-Palestinian conflict still exists today. It's the most amazing thing. And in order to fully grasp, in order to fully comprehend the conflict between Israel and Palestine, you have to go all the way back about 100 years. You remember, I'm not going to bore you. I'm not going to give you some long history lesson. Basically, when the British defeated the Ottoman Empire in the First World War, at the end of the First World War, you know this. The Ottoman Empire stretched all across parts of Africa, Asia, and Europe, including what we now know as Israel. The British defeated the Ottoman Empire. In 1922, the Ottoman Empire was dissolved, okay, completely dissolved. And what was left there was Britain presiding over a state that had a Jewish minority, but an Arab majority. Now, after the horrors of Adolf Hitler's Nazi Germany, there were millions of Jews that were escaping persecution from Nazi Germany, began leaving all these other European countries, and they began to converge on this piece of land that was predominantly presided over by the Arabs. You had all these Jewish people that were moving into Israel, a land that the Palestinians called Palestine. And over the years, there's a great conflict that erupted from who should own which piece of land. And finally, in 1948, Israel became a state, the British left, and the two groups, the Israelis and the Arabs, started having this conflict. They said, no, this is our piece of land. The Jewish people said, no, this is our piece of land. And so what ended up happening, if you look at the map of Israel, you've got the Gaza Strip down south, that little piece of land that's controlled by Egypt. You've got the West Bank on the east side of Israel that's basically controlled by Jordan, okay, in the Jordan territory. Okay, now all of this conflict is about land. It's all about who controls what, who controls the borders, who controls the water supply, who controls free movement of the Palestinian people in and out of Israel. It's all about the capital city of Israel. Is it Jerusalem? Is it Tel Aviv? You've got all of this conflict simply because of land. One group, the Jewish people, say this is our land. Another group, the Palestinian people, say no, this is our land. And the war rages, and it's been raging for years. Now, what I find amazing about what's happening today, there's a new piece of technology that has been devised by the Israeli Defense Forces. It's called the Iron Dome. It's the most amazing thing. When you watch this, it's like watching a sci-fi movie. It's the most incredible thing. Let's say, for instance, Hamas launches missiles into a residential area in Jerusalem. The Israelis have a piece of technology, a defense mechanism, listen to this, called the Iron Dome. It literally intercepts missiles that are targeted towards any Jewish settlement or Jerusalem or Israel. Let me put it to you this way. Let's say, for instance, someone points missiles at Lusaka, okay? Let's say they point missiles in the direction of Lusaka. The Israelis have a defense mechanism that intercepts those missiles way before they hit land. And these guys have an 86% success rate in terms of bringing down missiles that are directed at Jewish settlements or Jewish residential areas. I mean, literally, you could be Jewish in a neighborhood, and you could be watching missiles coming towards your house. And all of a sudden, the Israeli defense system intercepts those missiles and puts them out of commission in midair before they land on your house. And then all of a sudden, the defense mechanism kicks in. The Israeli Iron Dome does its thing, and it intercepts those missiles. The most amazing technology. I mean, talk about a people that protects its people. Most amazing thing. Now, here's the thing. The only solution, as far as the international political powers that be offer, is a two-state solution. When you hear that word, that phrase, a two-state solution, what you're hearing them say is, you need to learn how to live together. Okay? The West Bank is not going to be up for grabs. The Gaza Strip, it's not going to be up for grabs. Israel and Tel Aviv is not going to be up for grabs for one group of people. You guys have to learn to live together. That's what it means when you hear people say a two-state solution. Now, the question is, do they have the gumption to agree to disagree? Do the Jewish people, the Israelis, have enough gumption to sit down with the Palestinians and say, guys, let's embrace the two-state solution? I don't think so. I mean, that war has been raging for years, and it's not going to stop now. All they can do now, in my view, is adapt and learn. Adapt. I mean, they've come up with this Iron Dome because they know that it's not just about sitting from across the table and shaking each other's hands and saying, okay, let's agree to disagree. It's not enough for America to broker a peace deal between the Israelis and the Palestinians. It's not enough. It's more complicated than that. And the war will rage until kingdom come. Let's just put it that way. And it's really sad. to watch this territory degenerate into this horrible, horrible situation. It's really sad. Now, I want you to imagine for a moment, if in your mind's eye, I want you to think of the Zambian map. Okay. Now, there's a portion right in the middle that carves into the middle of Zambia, the Lumumbashi area. Okay. That's basically cutting into Zambian territory. Now, imagine if Lumumbashi, which is basically encapsulated within Zambia. I mean, Lumumbashi is surrounded basically by Zambia. Now imagine the Congolese saying, no, this is our land, and then us Zambians saying, no, Lumumbashi belongs to us. It doesn't belong to you. And then imagine Zambia and Congo disagreeing over who owns Lubumbashi. And then we start killing each other, fighting each other. That's the horror that's happening over there in Israel and Palestine. It's sad. It's sad. And there are no easy answers. There aren't any, unfortunately. No easy answers. No easy answers. All right. I wanted to get that off my chest. Thanks for listening. I can't take phone calls. I got to go home. Oh, let's read this one here. The Iron Dome is a pure indication that the Jews believe they can't live side by side in peace with the Arabs. Very true. Very true. I mean, can you imagine a situation where the Iron Dome didn't exist? If the Iron Dome didn't exist, can you imagine the horror, the hell that would, I mean, those bombs would be dropping on the people of Israel day and night. People would be dying like flies over there. But the Iron Dome, this piece of technology, it's a mobile defense system, very expensive. I mean, millions of dollars this thing costs. When the Arabs shoot missiles towards Israel, but imagine if Lubumbashi shot missiles towards Lusaka in the Kablonga area. And Zambia army has a piece of technology called the Iron Dome. Before those missiles hit ground, the Iron Dome intercepts those missiles and just literally explodes, just intercepts them in midair before they even hit the ground. This is a true comment here. I agree with this. The Iron Dome is a pure indication that the Jewish people believe they can't live side by side in peace with the Arabs. They've got too much to lose. Too much to lose. Yeah. Listen to this. This is true. $40,000 for one Iron Dome missile. Can you believe that? $40,000. The moment you see one of those missiles go up, boom, that's $40,000. It's amazing. It's just amazing. Amazing. All right, guys. God bless you. Thank you for listening.